She tried to stop me from saving a man's life. I worked in an emergency room, ER, for 6 years, so I am full of stories, but when it comes to petty revenge, this one sticks out in my memory. Every person who has worked in the ER knows that Mondays are the busiest days of the week and also when all the crazies come out. This day was no different. I worked as a nurse in triage, where you initially get assessed in the front before going to the back. Here we determine who needs to go back first and who can wait. It's not a first-come, first-serve as most people think. We had a few stretchers in the front for people who needed to be monitored a little closer or needed IVs, blood draws, labs. There were 6 stretchers, but this day was so busy all 6 stretchers were filled plus 5 more in the hallway. This lady comes in on an ambulance, but because her symptoms did not indicate an emergency, she was put in stretcher triage to wait her turn. She was in a lot of pain. After assessment, I recognized her symptoms as being caused from gallstones, painful but not life-threatening. We put her on a stretcher, started in 4, drew labs, and hooked her up to the monitor just in case. A few minutes later, PD comes in the front door. One look at her, and we knew she would cause problems. She had everything from the shoes to the haircut. A classic rich Karen. When she saw that her mom was still in the front and hadn't seen a doctor yet, she started screaming that she knew the CEO of the hospital and that we would all be fired if we didn't get her mom back to see a doctor right now. We explained that her mom has a history or gallstones, and even P was saying that she has had this pain many times because of the gallstones. We explained about being really busy and that there were no rooms available in the back and we'll get her back as soon as we could. She eventually calmed down but was still antsy. About an hour later, another patient, CP, comes in and was put in the stretcher beside P and PD. This patient had worrying complaints, but on initial assessment we could not find anything wrong. Now, as a nurse, you learn to always trust your gut. When your gut sounds an alarm, you listen. Something about this patient was setting my alarm bells off, but all his vitals were normal and I had no solid evidence to declare him an emergency. I hooked him up to the monitor and kept a very close eye on him. I let the charge nurse know of my concerns, and she said to let her know as soon as something changes. Not 5 minutes later, something changed. Now, at this time, I should explain that this hospital was a level 1 trauma center, meaning we get all the bad cases from car crashes to gunshot victims. We were in the middle of gang territory. Since we had to be ready for any traumas, life-threatening injuries, we had a room with 3 beds that was closed off from the rest of the beds because traumas usually involved a lot of people and a lot of blood. Even on busy days like this one, those rooms were empty unless there was a trauma patient. Now, back to CP. I was taking vital signs of P when I looked over to CP. I noticed a worrying change in his rhythm and stopped with P to start assessing CP to see what was going on. That did not sit well with PD. She actually grabbed my arm and told me to finish with her mom. I jerked my arm free and said I had to make sure CP was okay. As I turned around to CP, his rhythm went into V-vibe, life-threatening rhythm. I called the charge nurse to inform her of CP condition, all the while unhooking CP from the monitor and throwing his bed into drive. As I started pushing him back, PD actually jumps in front of the stretcher and stops it. She's screaming that her mom was here first and needed to be seen before CP, and screaming that I was a liar and that she was going to get me fired. I'm usually a mild-tempered person, but knowing CP was literally minutes from dying, and I said to PD, "You have a choice. Get out of my way or get run over," as I started pushing the stretcher forward. Now, I'm really good at pushing stretchers fast and getting the patients where they needed to go in a hurry, one of the reasons I was part of the trauma team. PD tried to stand firm, but she saw I wasn't going to stop and jumped out of the way just as I was an inch from hitting her. Unfortunately, she did not move fast enough, and I ended up running over her foot. At this point, I didn't care and got the patient back to the trauma room, leaving PD screaming, lying on the floor. We spent about 30 minutes on camp, but he ended up dying. By the time I got back up front, P and PD had been taken to the back to see a doctor, but my charge nurse warned me that they were filing a complaint against me. A few days later, the actual CEO of the hospital came to visit me on my next shift. He was known to be a kind and fair man. Since this happened during a time before cameras were put in the ERs, he had to take what happened from word of mouth. Apparently, PD said I assaulted her several times and put her mom's life in danger by not assessing her properly, and that I should be fired. Turned out that P did actually have gallstones and nothing else. Also, PD's foot was broken due to me running over it. I calmly explained exactly what happened and that PD's actions might have ended up in CP dying because of the delay she caused by her actions. When I got to the part of what I said to PD and running over her foot, the CEO actually started laughing and then tried to cover his mouth to hide his laughter. He explained that PD was a friend of his sister and he knows what kind of person she is. Not only did I not get fired, he put a personal note in my file praising my actions. On my next review, I got a large raise plus a bonus thanks to the CEO's note. Thank you, the silver, gold, and platinum. Wow. Thank you. Fired from job, gave all company shirts to homeless people in neighborhood. I worked for a company in Austin, Texas for over a decade, and in that time had amassed over 30 company shirts. I had a pile of polo-type shirts and button-ups. The company was a high-end specialist retail and corporate sales place that had really nice bathrooms. After the company was sold to a genuine prick, he decided to fire a good quantity of about 100 employees, including me. Anyone who knows Austin knows the huge number of homeless people living under highways. So after my firing, I passed out shirts to all of the local homeless population, telling them that if they wore the shirts, they could use the bathrooms in the store. Tailgate and honk on a single-lane street. How'd that work out for you? This happened a few months ago as I was driving my work van, the biggest Mercedes Sprinter you can drive without a commercial license, around Amsterdam delivering groceries. This story takes place on a single-lane road with high curbs on both sides that takes you from one neighborhood to another. Speed limit is 50 kilometers per hour, although it could have been 70 mph except in some tight corners. Now I've driven here so many times before that I feel comfortable doing 60-ish, just a bit faster than normal without the risk of getting caught speeding in an urban area. Suddenly, I hear a loud beep behind me, and wouldn't you know it, it's a BMW. What a surprise. I think to myself. I was quite impressed by my ability to guess the brand of this automobile, because everything forward of the rear doors wasn't visible in my mirrors. The tailgating and honking continues for a little while until I spot the perfect opportunity to teach this IKEA pencil-equipped douche a lesson, a long straight section in the road. For those of you who haven't been to the Netherlands before, our government loves two things, taxes and using those taxes to build speed bumps. As such, we have a wide variety of speed bumps, and this straight section was equipped with my personal favorite, the bus bypass variant, a trapezoid block just wide enough that a normal car has to pass over it with at least one wheel. But a bus can pass over it unobstructed. I've had plenty of practice with these obstacles and line up for a flawless pass while accelerating to a mind-numbing 70 km/h, the BMW still glued to my rear bumper. I pass over the obstacle without the slightest inconvenience. The oblivious BMW driver, however, hits it in the worst possible way, launching himself into the ceiling of his car and grinding his oil pan as the suspension compresses. After that, he kept a good distance. An egocentric actress was mean to me at a party, so I told her I was a movie producer before leaving. I was at an event in Paris years ago, a kind of party for creative people. I was alone, and I am a pretty shy person, but I like to speak with new people. It was a sitting dinner, and I was sitting next to a woman who was extremely loud and egocentric, telling everyone in the room she was an actress looking for work. Even if I was sitting next to her, she never even turned her face in my direction, always speaking to people on the other side of the room. Every time there was a single silence, and I had the opportunity to talk to someone near me. She loudly spoke over me about how much she needs to meet a movie producer. I was having a horrible evening. I can't stand people like that. I decided to leave early and go back home. I stood up and said, well, I need to wake up early tomorrow. Goodbye, guys. After more than 1 hour of ignoring me sitting next to her, she heard me and asked me, okay, bye, dude. By the way, what's your job? And I told her, I am a movie producer. Good night. I saw she was dead inside, and she tried to stand up and speak to me, but I left quick with a smile on my face. You don't want to sell to the American? Meet my French husband and waste your time. So I'm 38F, vacationing with my mother, 71F, in Europe right now, and she just told me this epic story that I must now pass down to all of you. Some background. My mother is a very nice person to strangers, especially salespeople. Aggressive salespeople will back her into a corner for an hour until I come rescue her because she doesn't want to be rude. My father passed a few years ago at age 81. And he was born in Egypt and was schooled in both French and Arabic and considered both to be his native languages, and then learned English as an adult when he moved to the U.S. A few years after they got married in 1976, but before they had kids, they took a vacation to Paris. My mother collects stamps, and she wanted some French plate blocks to add to her collection. She left my father napping in the hotel room and went to the post office a block away planning on spending $300 to $400 on stamps. She got to the post office and waited in a very long line. When she finally got to the front, the woman behind the counter told her in perfect English that she didn't speak English, so my mom waited for another post employee to become free. The second employee finally became available but was very rude to my mother, telling her that she couldn't help her, couldn't sell her this, out of stock of that, etc., while rolling her eyes and being otherwise nasty and rude, nearly bringing my mother to tears. My mother was so upset that she decided to get some revenge. She went back to the hotel room and woke up my father and brought him to the post office. My mother waited until the rude woman was available and had my dad translate in perfect French, telling the woman that my mom wanted the plate block of every set of stamps she had, watching her remove the plate block from each sheet. For those of you that don't know, when you remove the plate block from a sheet of stamps, the remaining stamps must be counted by hand. After the nasty woman had a nice stack of plate blocks for my mother, one of every stamp design they had, my mother turned to my father and said, "Tell her I've changed my mind." Not only did that woman miss out on a huge sale for being mean and nasty, but she also had to spend a good 30 to 60 minutes after closing to hand count each individual stamp after they closed for the day. I'm just so proud of my very polite mother right now. Letting my ex-husband drown in attorney fees. After 5 years of marriage and endless false promises, I finally get my personal revenge. My ex-husband, 32, and I, 33, got married in 2017 after 1 year of long-distance relationship between the U.S. and Germany. We sealed the deal, got married in the U.S., and he wanted me to live with him in the good, US of A, because he didn't want to learn another language. To make things easier, he moved in with me in Germany for a job I helped him to get, so we would have time to finalize my plans for immigration and immigration. Now my ex didn't even got started to gather all required documents for himself to be my sponsor. Said and done, I had all documents well sorted out, canceled all my contracts, sold my belongings, sent large parts of my things to the U.S. and said goodbye to my lovely home, friends and family. Little did I know, my ex-husband did not do a single bit of research or even did his part for my immigration process, and I wasn't able to set foot on the plane that would bring me to my new home. Long story short, he left to the U.S. without me, and I was homeless, with a suitcase and 2 cats. He continued to lead me on with promises to come and get me. Meanwhile, he started a polyamorous affair. Later, he got involved with a 21-year-old young lady. I lived with my parents for a few months to get back on my feet, find a new apartment and a new source of income. Now, I never went to German officials to get our marriage recognized in Germany, mostly because I didn't think it was necessary, because we planned to live together in the U.S. But my laziness should be proven to be useful later. Since he was with his new girlfriend, 21, I broke up the relationship. In the U.S., we still count as married, and focused on myself, regaining my independence and rebuild my life in my home country. I fell in love with an acquaintance, 31, I've known for 13 years, and we soon found that we have very much the same goals in life and the very same ideals and wishes for a monogamous life. Meanwhile, I've been in contact with my ex to finally get him to start the divorce in the U.S. Since the marriage was closed in the U.S., only a U.S. citizen is able to petition for the divorce at the district court. I didn't want my name to be further affiliated with him, and I also didn't see the reason why he should further profit from tax benefits. I made clear I didn't want this anymore and wanted to move on. Finally, he got a process started and forgot one single thing. I'm not an American citizen. So everything that applies in the U.S. when it comes to paperwork doesn't apply to me in Germany. Means serving me via email? Nope. Wanting me to sign something electronically? Nope, not possible. All they would have to do is to send me the notarized, signed, and translated paperwork via physical mail. But they don't. So I get email after email with pleas to get me to sign the U.S. divorce papers electronically. With every mail his lawyer sends me, his pay ramps up. Don't get me wrong. I certainly told the lawyer what he has to do in order to get me to sign a legally significant piece of paper, but I guess he doesn't know international laws. So at this point, my ex still sits on all of my belongings I asked him to give back, and since he doesn't do that, I'll keep collecting spam mails from his lawyer. That's my personal revenge for leading me on, using my hopeless romantic heart, and leaving me alone when things went hard. I don't count as married in Germany and am currently expecting a little baby boy with my partner, and we are building a life together without false promises. Don't want to pay me for shoveling your snow? We'll have some more. I live in New Jersey and we just had a snowstorm, so I thought I could make some quick cash by shoveling driveways. So I start off and do a couple of houses and make about $80, pretty good money for me. So I go to this house and this lady says that she will give $50 for shoveling her driveway and sidewalk, so I start and finish about 20 minutes later. I go up to the door and knock, but she won't open, so I go to the back door and knock. She still doesn't open. Then I see her looking at me through the window, but she quickly turns away and pretends like nothing happened. At this point, I realize that I just got tricked into doing a shit ton of work and I'm not getting paid. I start to walk home all pissed off, and then remember that my friend who lived down the street has one of those machines that clear snow. Let the revenge being, I borrow it from him and run down to her house. I turn it on and blast that snow that I shoveled and some more all on her yard. Then she rushes outside and starts yelling at me, but I return the machine to my friend's house and go home. Don't yell at me for bad formatting or spelling mistakes. I'm on mobile and am doing my best. Holy moly, I'm riding the high of a lifetime from Petty Revenge. I'll keep this as short as possible. I was biking around downtown and got a flat tire, so I went to the nearest shop to get it fixed. They only allow one person in the store at a time due to COVID, so when it was my turn I went inside and talked to the middle-aged woman at the cash. To be honest, she wasn't very polite, but I thought nothing of it because not only do I work in retail and know what it's like, but everything is x10 worse right now due to COVID. So anyways, after tolerating her for a few minutes, she tells me to wait outside until the bike is ready. Cool, no problem. I wait outside for maybe 15 minutes or so before I see my bike get brought back up to the cash. I waited a few more minutes for the lady to invite me back inside, but to no avail. After a few more minutes of waiting, I let myself inside, to which she said, "Excuse me, your bike isn't ready yet. Wait outside until I tell you it's ready." Cool, no problem. I gave her another 15 minutes of my time before letting myself back inside, and we had this exchange. "Lady, do you not like to listen? I told you to wait until your bike is ready." Me, "I'm sorry, I just noticed the repairman bring the bike back up and I think it's ready." Lady, "Too bad, it hasn't been fixed yet." This broke me, so I just said, "Okay, thanks for your time, I'll be leaving." She looked a little flustered, but nonetheless held the door open for me as I grabbed my bike, walked outside, and rode away with a free tire change.